Alison is here to have a look at what's happening in the papers. I'm going to start with reactions to British Prime Minister Theresa May. Her announcement yesterday the UK believes Russia is behind this apparent poisoning of the former spy.
Right, and she's demanded that Russia respond to these allegations by midnight tonight. This ultimatum, or deadline, if you will, is on the front page of all of the British papers today. May said there are two options. Either it was directly carried out by Russia, or Russia lost control of its agents who then carried out this attack. Now, this Russian link was determined based on the nerve agent that was used in the attack, which investigators say is a military-grade substance called Novichok, which means newcomer in Russian. Only Russia could have manufactured it, they say, and the cartoonist Patrick Chapat is also tracing this substance back to Russia in this cartoon for Swiss paper Le Temps. Your power is founded strongly on oil, we see someone telling Putin. Meanwhile, a member of the Russian security service is there, standing there, and he's adding, and gas.
Interestingly put. British papers, they're really talking about retaliation now, aren't they?
Right-wing tabloid The Daily Mail asks on its front page, how can we go to Putin's World Cup now? The paper says a coordinated boycott of this summer's World Cup, which is set to be held in Russia, is one of the few ways to make Moscow sit up and listen. That option partially figures on The Guardian's list of possible responses. I say partially because they say such a boycott would only include officials, actually not footballers. They have a lot of other interesting proposals there. Actually, you might recognize that's Jose Mourinho, the manager of the football club Manchester United. Why is there a picture of him? Well, he's actually signed a contract with the Russian state broadcaster Russia Today to be a commentator for the channel during the World Cup. The Guardian says the government could put pressure on Mourinho to throw that contract out and say he's not going to do it. That's one of the less serious responses we see on the Guardian's list. The UK could also impose new sanctions against Russia. They say they could label Russia a state sponsor of terrorism, or most seriously, according to the Guardian, they could leak classified material that they have on the large-scale money laundering that is being carried out, they say, by Putin and his allies. Now, the Times, meanwhile, seems to have very little faith that Theresa May is going to retaliate. You can see in this cartoon by Martin Moreland, she's attacking Putin there, but with feather dusters. He appears to be dying, but dying of laughter.
Yeah, no, you mentioned the Russian channel RT there, didn't you? How are they reacting to Theresa May's accusations?
Russian media across the board continues to say that there is no evidence in this case, no evidence to say that Russia is implicated in the poisoning. If you take a look at this article, which RT labeled as its most popular on the website today, they say Salisbury's spy poisoning craze shows that you can accuse Russians of anything. And they say, really, when it comes to Russia, you're innocent until proven guilty. Well, that's no longer relevant.
Let's turn to a different story now. We're going to talk about Slovakia. The political fallout is continuing there. This is after the murder of a journalist last month.
Right, and there's mounting rage against the Slovak government for not having done more to protect this journalist who was working on a story about the Italian mafia. The country's interior minister stepped down yesterday in an attempt to sort of calm the anger, take the bullet, if you will. You can see him on the front page of Slovak paper Pravda today. That headline there reads, "Coalition Crisis," and that's because the parties in the government's ruling coalition, well, one of the smaller parties is threatening to leave unless they call new elections. That would cause Prime Minister Robert Fico to lose his majority. Meanwhile, the people are calling for the entire government to resign. There were mass protests held at the end of last week. There are more mass protests planned for this Friday. The Financial Times says they're the biggest protests that the country has seen since it gained independence 25 years ago.
And meanwhile, the murder of that Slovak journalist leading the Italian government to increase protective measures for journalists.
Right, 19 Italian journalists are currently under 24-hour protection by police. That's according to French paper Le Monde. The paper spoke with several of them, one pictured as a reporter named Marilena Natale. She investigates a family with ties to the Camorra clan. You can see her with those photos of that family laid out. She told Le Monde that what is the hardest for her about living with 24-hour bodyguards isn't fearing for her own life, but thinking about the children of the 4 policemen who take turns protecting her, because they're the ones that would take the hit if she were ever attacked.
And very quickly, Alison, just time to talk about the superhero film Black Panther. Been out for weeks now. Cultural impact still showing up, though.
All right, most recently in sports stadiums, Slate reports that athletes worldwide have been pledging their allegiance to the kingdom of Wakanda by crossing their arms over their chests to symbolize Wakanda forever. You can see it spread to the tennis world. Gaël Monfils was the most recent one to do it this weekend. And Slate says this is really proof that the film is becoming a cultural touchstone for the African diaspora, and they say, colonizers beware.
Excellent. I like the move. Can we all do it? All three. Brian.
I know, cultural appropriation, Stuart, but we can ask to immigrate.
Exactly. Thanks very much. Alison with the papers on France 24.